Hi everyone, my name is Nick, and this week's plant of the week is Peperomia incana. This plant is commonly referred to as the felted peperomia or the felted pepper face, and this is truly one of my favorite houseplants. I talk about this one as often as I can as it just fits me like a glove. I love peperomia. I've been a collector of them for a couple years now, and this one is a very fuzzy houseplant. I'm a really big fan of fuzzy houseplants, and this one is really just like encased in a layer of very, very, very thick fuzz that is really like totally felty. Like there's a reason why they call this the felted peperomia or the felted pepper face, whatever you prefer. And this is native to Brazil, and it is really a fantastic peperomia. If you have a brighter area of your home and you're looking for a fun houseplant to grow in, and say you have a really bright window and some things haven't been growing that phenomenally in it, maybe they've been burning a little bit, this peperomia is a perfect plant for that situation. So you can see these leaves are very like bluish, grayish, silverish color, and as that kind of translates as this is a houseplant that can really take a lot of sunlight. It can really take quite the beating of some harsh sun, which is phenomenal because a lot of peperomia, while they are more succulent houseplants, they don't love a whole lot of sunlight. This one you can completely treat like a succulent, so I really enjoy that about this, which means it's kind of more of a set and forget houseplant and one of the more easier peperomias, I would say. So this can grow in medium light. I would say bright light is best, but this can grow in medium light. I have grown it in medium light conditions. And the stems just come in a little bit less thick, which is totally fine. And the leaves come in a little bit less blue. They come in just more of a green color, which is fine because it still keeps that feltedness that I'm obsessed with this plant about. So as long as that's there, I can't complain. But this is an example of one that I've been growing in a bright window. I think I've had it in a west or east facing window for at least a year or two now. So it's definitely been filling out accordingly, which I really enjoy. You can see I have this rogue stem right here, which I kind of want to get rid of because this is kind of the star of the show for me. However, over time, as this one has been developing, you can also see right here that there is a flower, which kind of looks like a mouse's tail or like a cattail plant as we see growing around lakes and stuff. It kind of has that vibe. However, where I was going with this before I got off track is this plant right here has been producing all of these little baby plants out of each node along the stem. So you can see this old leaf right here is starting to turn yellow. This is probably like one of the first stems that was on this plant when I purchased it. And now it's putting energy into producing all these little babies. So I'm just keeping this because in due time, I could probably go ahead and then just propagate all these separate babies and fill out a new planter and not have this rogue stem. Which, speaking of which, this plant has been very easy to propagate. Although it is a very succulent houseplant and you would think it would probably rot very easily in water, I have just usually been putting my stem cuttings in water and letting them grow out from there. I've personally not experimented with growing Peperomia incana from just a leaf cutting, but many peperomias, if not all of them, you can grow from just a single leaf as long as you have some of the petiole on there is usually pretty important because that's where the root in the new plant is going to come from. But I haven't experimented with that because since this houseplant is very succulent, it's not one that I'm normally just placing directly in soil. I myself would be a little worried about it rotting a little quickly as this is much more of a succulent peperomia, but it has been a houseplant that I have propagated on many occasions, so just something to note there. Peperomia overall are not fond of drafts or cold temperature, so in the winter months I would be mindful of keeping these too close to a window. However, out of all the peperomia I grow in my home, I would say from experience that Peperomia incana is the most tolerant of the draft. So I usually just leave my Peperomia incana in a window all year long, and I have never had an issue there, but some other peperomias have gotten some cold damage in the past, so just something to be aware of, but just be wary of it, but you don't really have to worry about it with your Peperomia incana. I haven't had really any pest issues with this plant. It's been very reliable. I will just say on mine in particular, I get a couple of mealybugs now and again because it lives in a windowsill where a couple of Hoyas grow, and Hoyas just yell on their megaphone out to mealybugs to come hang out on them. So this just hanging out in the general vicinity kind of invites them. But this houseplant is just so succulent and felted that it's really just not an issue. It's just something that's kind of there for me. So also something to be wary of, but not really something that you have to pay too much mind to. The planter size, if you purchase your peperomia in like a 4-inch plant like nursery pot, which is probably the most often way you're going to buy it. I wouldn't go too much larger than that. Mine was in a little bit of a deeper planter, which is why I have it in this planter that's a little bit more like tall and skinny. However, if you do purchase yours in just a normal one, keep it roughly the same size that you purchased it, or better yet, just keep it inside the plastic nursery planter inside the grower's mix that it has, because I often find that is the best way to let your peperomias acclimate to your home. However, once you are moving it into its own soil mix, I would be sure to add some perlite and orchid bark. The way that peperomia grow in nature is like somewhat epiphytic. They're not just growing in like a loamy soil mixture, they're growing in like odd spaces, nooks and crannies in the rainforest. So you want to give it some of that more like barky mixture, maybe add some more like perlite or pumice into the mixture as well to kind of replicate some of what it would be receiving in its natural habitat. But this plant is really a reliable one, really rewarding to grow. Not the fastest growing houseplant by any means, but as far as peperomia go, this is definitely more rewarding. The only thing you really have to be mindful with this houseplant and peperomia overall is not to overwater them, because that is the kiss of death. With peperomia, they can rot very quickly, as you can read with these super chunky stems that if you were to water this too much, it might start to rot at the base, and that's usually a no-go. It's a little difficult to save a houseplant once it's rotting, but if you leave it on the opposite end of the spectrum, you leave it to dry out a little bit too much, this houseplant's going to react so much better to that. The leaves are just going to lose a little bit of their succulence. They're normally pretty thick, but if you go too far on the end of drought, it will start to lose a little bit of that succulence. And then upon rewatering, this houseplant will just gain that succulence back. So when in doubt, don't water your Peperomia incana. Oh, and one more thing is that this houseplant is non-toxic. Peperomia across the board are non-toxic to pets. So if you have any nippy pets or nippy children in your home, I would not have to worry twice about this houseplant. Probably doesn't taste very good, I would assume, but try it out yourself if you would like to. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you don't already, follow me on Instagram at PhillyFoliage, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video. Have a great day.